Okay, my phone says 9, so let's get started so that I'm not late again. We've got 5 people here, so we should be okay with that. Approve the minutes from February 11th. I need a motion to approve. Glenn? Second, Jenna. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, minutes passed. Public invited to be heard.
We're actually going to put the next meeting in the newsletter for LHA residents.
Good. It would be nice to get, maybe.
You say that?
Yeah. Okay. Organizational updates.
Sure. All right, let's talk this time again. Feels like we just did this.
We did.
It's time again for board member elections. So generally, as we sit now, let me pull out my terms, and we have one vacancy that last summer you all agreed to just hold that vacancy until this selection process to make sure it wasn't such a short term. So we have one vacancy. And then Jenna, your term is up June 30th of this year. And so your term was up as well. So you would have to, if you want to keep working with us, you'd have to reapply as well. And remember, that was the last of those rounds where we're getting all of the terms on consistent. I think we have some 2 years and some 3-year terms. So that was the last of the one that was on this kind of shorter schedule. And then, Arlene, if you have you spoken with Josh at all? Do we know what he'd like to do?
He did send an email that he had resigned.
Okay.
So as of February 28th, he said, please let this email serve as my formal resignation from the LHA Advisory Board. He sent it to Harold and then CC'd me. So,
okay.
Yes, he does resign.
Okay, so then that means we have 3 spaces on the board to fill for that next term. And so, you know what, I want to say...
Who's the
It's Arlene. The vice is Carrie.
No, so we don't have to do.
No. And then the new terms should... So Jenna's and the vacancy, those should be new 3-year terms going to 2028. I got to double check that with the clerks. At minimum, it'd be 2 years to 27, but those might be 3-year ones. And then Josh's term is up June 30th, 2026. So we would be replacing his position on that same term schedule. So it would be a 1-year term essentially for that person. Okay. So that the application period is open. It closes at 5 p.m. on April 18th. The link is available on the LHA website in the announcement section. Is there anything else we need to chat on about this? As we've done in the past, the process would be at some point in May, most likely. We would be doing the board interviews, and then council makes the selections. Probably in the June, because the terms would all start July 1st. Council meaning the LHA Board of Commissioners. Well, that's too bad. I'm sorry to see Josh, but I'm happy it's for a happy reason. He's got a new role and it's too busy. Yeah. Okay?
Okay. All right. Development and project updates.
I think I can keep this pretty brief. We're in construction on Ascent, and if you've driven by lately, we are fully vertical, which is really exciting to see. We're hoping I'd like to do a walkthrough. I mean, it's just framing right now, but pretty soon we're talking about trying to get on site and do a walkthrough. So once we have something formal like that set up, we'll let our board members know if they'd like to join, but it's not going to be much to see yet. It's more just I'm imagining walls, but we do soon. And then really, it is March, but we are still working on making sure that everything with Village on Main is all wrapped up with a bow. That is still just in the last bits of that process. And then we are looking to what is coming up. So we've been playing around with a couple things. We have a draft RFP that's almost ready to go out to get a finance consultant for the Hearthstone Lodge 202 project, which would be essentially a new financing setup and paired with a rehab of a TBD size. And then we're looking at a couple of opportunities out there as well. We have land banked, and currently that's at the former Royal Mulway Home Park. We're talking with the city's teams working on everything regarding First and Main Transit Station to see how that all fits together. And then we'll have to see how that all plays out. But there's some options there for what to do. But also, if the First and Main Transit Station has needs, they're looking at the development area as a whole, and there's a chance they need access to this parcel to help make that work. We've got some other land that the city owns that we're looking at if it might be advantageous to swap. It's all kind of up in the air right now, but we're figuring out what to do as our next development. Our goal is still, we need another project to hit in about 2028, just on our financing projections to make sure we have development fee coming in on a consistent basis. So I'll leave it there unless there's any specific questions.
I have a question. So as far as the set goes, do you know if they have secured all the materials that are necessary to finish that project? Or do you think we're looking at potential shortages or?
We have not heard about potential shortages. They do lock in a lot of their pricing in advance when they're signing the contract, which was last fall. And we have not heard that they've had any challenges with suppliers or anything like that so far. Have you heard anything more?
There's a meeting happening now, so I can follow Katie.
Yeah. Let me see.
I just want to say I've had a double book meeting, so you're in capable hands with this team. So we'll see y'all next month.
Thanks. Okay. Do you have other questions as well, Arlene?
No, I think that was it. Okay, input to the Board of Commissioners.
So the first thing I want to mention is the HCV admin plan is one of the major items on the agenda for next Tuesday, but we already briefed everyone here on that last month because we ended up, it was going to go in February, we ended up extending the public review. So we've already talked to you all about that, so when you see that on the agenda. However, the first thing that I do want to give an update on that we will be notifying the board about is the Aspen Meadows flooring. After 3 years and change, we do have an arrangement with the construction contractor at the time, the flooring materials supplier at the time, and the architect at the time, and we have a fix coming. We're still in progress of signing off on our agreement, everything that we've been negotiating the past several years. But it's happening, and it's starting on Monday. So we met with residents yesterday. We're doing another engagement session with them on Friday to inform them what the process is going to be. But we are getting the flooring fixed and or replaced. It depends on what area, at no cost to LHA. The only thing that we're going to throw in is we're going to buy boxes for residents to be able to pack up some of their more loose items that would get moved around. So the residents were they were super happy yesterday for the most part.
And 40 people came.
Yeah, 40 out of the 50 tenants there. We have some follow-up questions. They brought up some good points, and so we got some follow-up questions for the construction team. But in general, in certain areas, the flooring is going to be pulled up, and any non-damaged material we're going to reapply in the correct fashion, in a glue-down fashion. We won't be able to do that through the whole building because there's some areas that will damage and some areas might get damaged when they pull it up. But we do have carpets going in certain areas to make up for that difference. And in the ADA units, in the kitchens, hallway, and bath, those really high traffic areas, we're going to lay down a really highly durable sheet vinyl, which actually it's called Forbo. It's something that's used like in hospitals when you have a lot of wheel traffic, especially, but it doesn't look industrial. It looks like nice flooring, and the residents only had good things to say about that sample. So we're trying to just make sure we do the most cost effective, but also making sure that we plan for the long term, make sure the flooring lasts as long as possible as designed, and minimizing disruption to the building. So work will start in the common areas March 17th. We won't get into the units until April 2nd, and then they'll do either 1 or 2, depending on how quickly things are moving and how many things residents have, 1 or 2 per day. It's expected to be 5 entire weeks of work. So from mid-March through, I think we're going to go into May, frankly. So it will be some disruption on site, but once we're out of the common areas, they'll be out of the common areas in 2 weeks' time, and then when they're in units, they'll only be doing 1 or 2 at a time, so it would be more limited. Is there any questions about that?
Are we actually moving people out this time?
No.
We're going
Work will all be done in 1 day per unit. So people will we're going to have the gathering room set up nicely with things to do if they need to. There's also the library, the game area on site. There's multiple common areas that they can hang out in. And then they will not have to spend a night out of the unit. The work will be done in the day. They'll most likely replace the kitchen, hall, and bath flooring first, since there's not really furniture there, and then move items from the areas that they need to work onto the new flooring, do that area, and then put it back. Most bedrooms are not getting worked on. The first floor bedrooms do have that vinyl flooring, so they would be worked on, but all second and third floor wouldn't be touched. So, for example, one question was, can I just hang out in my bedroom and watch TV? I was like, let's chat with them about that. I don't see a problem, except we need to ask if they think they need to utilize the bedrooms for storage for that time or something. So we'll be managing things like that. But finally, got that sorted. It took a very long time, but I think it ended up getting what we wanted. So.
What was the issue before?
So it's laminate vinyl tile, LVT. It's wood plank look flooring. It was a value engineered item. This was when before the project, all those design decisions were made before the city and the LHA started partnering. So we came in right when we were starting construction. But the flooring was installed with a sound mat underneath, which is something that the flooring suppliers in that time period were recommending and testing out and selling, basically. And the architect went with that recommendation. But turns out it's called a floating floor because it's not glued down. And these planks click together. And so they floated. And if you had wheels from wheelchair, walker, even an office chair, it could cause it to lift, and then you clip it, and then it starts to chip away.
Wow.
So we have a lot of areas in the building that are duct taped.
Wow.
It's very ugly. We've been managing trip hazards for 3 years.
And they think it's because of the sound?
Yeah, primarily.
Wow. I'm doing Google right now and love that.
It's happening at my house.
No.
My house was built in 2021. There's no sound mat, but just as my house settles, the nail heads are coming up, raising it, and we're hitting it and knocking off chips.
Oh.
So if you ask a flooring, we've been talking to a lot of flooring suppliers, and if you ask them now, they're like, oh no, you got to make sure you do it this way or that, because it's just high risk for that type of thing. So.
I was thinking maybe it was water.
No.
Well, it was really pretty soon after they all moved into that started after.
Yeah. It was within the warranty period. So just the short story of why it took this long. We made the claim within the warranty period, but the flooring supplier pulled up the specs of the flooring. So this is by the actual manufacturer from China. And it says at the very bottom in teeny tiny print, not for wheel bearing loads. And you're like, I feel like if I had seen that, I would think that's like heavy wheel, like commercial. But it was any wheel. So at first, our claim got denied. We're like, well, it's lasted less than a year. What are we supposed to do? And so that's when we started seeking out insurance. We spoke to a construction defect lawyer to see what the best course of action was. But luckily, all three of those parties were willing to participate to keep it out of insurance and legal. And so we're moving forward.
So is LHAAB going to be responsible for any of the cost?
No. We're buying boxes. They're also responsible. There's a new 1-year warranty period on whatever they do. And they're responsible for any lost or damaged items during moving.
Okay.
So.
Okay, well, that's encouraging.
They were, generally it was a good team. I know it was slow, but it was generally a good team to work with. Originally, we were going to supply our maintenance staff just as an in-kind contribution of staff time, but then our maintenance team got, we lost a couple, so we were in over our heads, and I said, we can't commit it anymore. So I looked out and got move costs, because you'd have two people working for 5 straight weeks. The range was $25,000 to $38,000, and I told them, like, we don't have this, and they offered to use their crews to do the work. So it was generally a very amenable process overall. Okay, any questions on that?
No, but I think they're excited about how something's actually going to be done.
Yes. They've been extremely patient.
As long as there was duct tape available.
Yeah.
Okay, resident quality of life.
I think you're missing 6B, Ernie.
I'm sorry. I thought it was the vouchers. Never mind.
So we just want to talk about this kind of broadly and generally, because everyone is hearing a lot of things and nothing is quite certain at this point what's going on. What we have been doing, so things we've heard. First, we might have spoken about this briefly already because it happened in January. The federal funding freeze that lasted less than a day disrupted everybody that does jobs similar to ours for a whole day and lost productivity. But that is kind of that's where we're operating in, where there's word coming out, scares people, and then we're like, well, we need clarification. We're trying to ask our HUD reps questions. We hear some of them tell us, just be prepared. Some of them say, I don't know anything yet. It's a lot of uncertainty out there. What we do know that is when that January pause on federal funding came out, excluded was rental assistance and things like direct payments to people. So we had, that seemed clear enough, but then our HUD rep also said, just don't do anything until you hear from us. So it seemed like things like voucher programs that provide direct assistance to people were going to be less impacted, but honestly, we aren't holding our breath. I should say we are holding our breath. We're not counting on anything at this point. What we are doing is just running numbers on our voucher program for the next 2 years to just know what kind of, how open are we to a hit, and what would happen if we took a hit of X size, and making sure that we are engaging with our HUD reps, engaging with our congressional reps, telling them what the hits could look like if a number of things happened, and coming up with like, okay, if things go badly, here's the range of options we could do. We haven't implemented anything yet, but just want to let everyone know that I assume it's on people's mind and what is going to happen. The answer is we don't know, but we're trying to prepare the best we can for a range of options.
How many head reps do we have, or that we work with directly?
I feel like we've talked to like 5, all of which are now gone. Because one goes, and they give us a new backup, and then that person's gone, and then they give us a new backup, and then that person leaves. I mean, they're down. I don't even know who lives there.
So it should
we have like one person.
Oh, it should be just like talking mostly to one person. Ideally.
Mostly to one person on like our voucher side.
Like, Longmont's
we had
not that big.
No, one person on our our CDBG home funding side. That she was wonderful, and she's gone. We don't even know who her replacement is at this point. And then on the voucher side, we've been popped around, 4 times?
We have a meeting, we have 2 meetings in April. One with the shortfall team, because that's something we've been discussing is what's coming, what it looks like. That's what we use the 2-year tool to forecast if there's going to be a shortfall or a deficit in our funding. We have a meeting with that person early April, and then we also have a meeting with our new HUD portfolio manager. The one that we were working with retired. I'm assuming he took the early buyout.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be meeting that new HUD rep in April as well.
So, I don't know if you have any specific questions at this time. We may not have answers, but I just want you to know we're paying attention and trying to plan or at least have answers to potential impacts if something comes down the pipe.
So about a week ago, Harold talked to the Senior Center Advisory Board, and he was really pretty specific about a lot of things as far as, this is possible hit we could take this year, next year, which is pretty significant cost-wise, and even as far as vouchers go, which at that, the senior board just listened. They're not really involved in it.
Right.
Do you want to share any of that with this board?
I think at this point it's so high level
And speculative.
and speculative. We don't know any of it. We're just trying to prepare for the worst. And we're just running our 2-year tool to be able to say, here, look, this is why we need shortfall funding, just like most communities out there should be doing to prepare, but all of them, or at least many, will likely have a shortfall need as well. Some things that could change the picture. HUD is going to be, we're supposed to, release their income limits and everything that we do that trickles down to setting rents. That typically comes out about May each year. I don't know if that will be on time or not, but that will tell us what are they doing with the payment standards for the next year. So we want that information as well to play into our numbers and just see how it's all looking. But I'm afraid to put something out there that we don't know. We're just running projections to see if it's a little bit bad, here's this. If it's very bad, here's this. And what are our backup plans? So I'm just hesitant to put that out in the public when we don't know much yet.
We'll probably know more at our next meeting.
Hopefully.
Well, hopefully they'll pass the budget, which has
That would be ideal.
full funding, but
Yep, and so the continuing resolution that's on the table right now would hold funding levels until September. That would be helpful. That doesn't solve for 2026. We could still see big changes, but at least holding in 2025 would help us know what, at least in the short term, what do we do?
So I think obviously Molly's got a really good point. Makes no sense. Speculation's not super helpful, but I don't even know exactly how we put these together. I feel like I should know that, but maybe we just keep that, just the issue about funding challenges is just like a check-in. I'm not saying every month, but like every couple months. I don't really know how we do that, but just so it's something organized and we can, as things develop, talk about it more. I really don't know exactly. So.
Well, things are moving so much. I mean,
Right.
here or there, we don't know, but
right, yeah.
I can put this on for next month, hoping that we do have a good amount of actual news.
Month after whatever.
Yeah, we meet with the shortfall team the week before our next meeting.
Oh, okay.
So
That would be good.
hopefully we'll have more information, concrete information to share or projections.
Okay. All right. Resident quality of life. Try that again for the second time now. I have a couple of questions under there. Do you guys have anything? Do you have anything on? So, I guess one of my concerns is, what is the goal on landscaping? Because I know we got the rocks out, and that the areas that they put the rocks on looks really nice. We still have a lot of areas that
They're
are
gonna mulch
open.
it.
Yeah,
They're working on mulch.
they're going to cut down mulch. Okay, because that will make it look really nice, or at least
It's time.
Yeah.
Can't dry it out anymore.
And that's something that comes up every time at some of those places. But yeah, at least I knew we were moving forward. It's just so there's been a interesting situation that I know that the City Council is dealing with under a potential ordinance as far as housing for group homes. Put it like that, group homes. And one of the things that they have talked about is a sensitive area, and I just was wondering if somebody could explain to me what a sensitive area is, and does that include our senior housing or any senior housing in the city?
Senior housing was not one of the parameters that they were discussing in terms of if they were going to consider a distance requirement. Senior housing was not one of them. They were talking about schools, daycares, parks, trails, youth center, recreation center. Those are all, that's the whole gamut of everything that was discussed as an option. There is going to be further discussion on that as well, because they directed staff to bring back what does it look like if you do 500 feet, 1,000 feet, whatever type of range from all these various places. So what this is it's considering distance requirements for registered sexual offenders. There are over 200, over 200 in the community already, peppered.
I'd say closer to 275.
Okay. And this all came about because some neighbors realized that there were multiple registered sex offenders living together just in a private residence, and were concerned. And so,
And to just add to that, that is not uncommon throughout the city. A lot of times a landlord will give these folks a chance, and many of them live together. So when we go do our sex offender checks, we'll be able to, hopefully contact 3 or 4 of them that are living together. So this is not a new thing at all.
and it really, that could be for a number of reasons. A friendly landlord to that, to accepting a tenant with that on their record. It could be because they are, maybe they have to go through a lot of, what do you call it, recovery program. There's some requirements to that they might be doing together, or maybe that makes it easier for them to comply with there's a lot of reasons that could be. What I would say is, from the housing perspective, the distance requirements, they're here. The distance requirements would limit, potentially greatly, where they can live, and that means there would be pockets in town that are possible which could concentrate, which could cause more neighbor problems. So all of that, staff is putting together a bunch of options for them to consider and see how that
Who's the
plays out.
neighbor?
Well, Jeremy was the one preparing, he's probably not the lead, but it seems like he was preparing the presentation and ordinance. So
Okay.
I think it's with planning, so Grant's group, and Zach obviously has been on there, between planning and public safety. Because it ties into code enforcement when you're actually, if it is qualifying as a group home, if you do have multiple living together, there's a lot of ins and outs to that on the planning and compliance compliance side. But then there's the public safety element as well.
So I only brought this up because the place, at least the one place that I kind of know about, is close to a couple of our housing units. But then it brings up, we've got Suites and we've got Zinnia, and I don't know what we have there either. So I just
We do.
was curious what's sensitive.
So we do have registered sex offenders, certainly at Zinnia,
None of
not at
the
the suites.
We have about 10.
But they are, those buildings are within 1,000 feet as the crow flies. Actually, it might just be the suites. Like Zinnia might be actually, as the crow flies, more than 1,000 feet from the TLC
Be a trail
daycare center.
behind suites once that trail's developed.
Yeah, and it's not, we're not clear on what council's going to use as the sensitive areas. There was some council members that were not in favor of trails, because then you're literally Xing out everything almost. But we do, and also what they were talking about is grandfathering. There is not a way to exclude somebody from their current housing, so it would only be going forward. And I will say, as for the record, we've asked this question of Sarah in the past. Have we ever had a problem with Suites residents in the daycare across the street in the cul-de-sac? And the answer is no.
Yeah. So is there a difference between, I know there's a difference between a misdemeanor and a felony sex offender. Do we have that differentiation down at Zinnia?
We have felony sex offenders there because there's actually, even within those, there's multiple layers. There's so many. I mean, it's actually, it became really hard for us to even draw the line on Zinnia. Like, what is it? There's a sexually violent predator. There's the lifetime, which does that even, what is the lifetime list versus the myriad of felony and misdemeanor charges?
What's unfortunate is a lot of these folks could get off the registry. They just have to go before a judge, and they just don't do it. Several of them.
Oh, really?
Yes. They put their time in, and they just don't go and clear the record.
The ones at Zinnia that we are aware of, it is so just so you know, the tenant selection plan, which was largely guided by the state's voucher program, which is not the same as the suites, which is federal. We were able to get an automatic denial for any lifetime registered sex offenders, but they had the opportunity to appeal. And what Molly was referring to, this difficulty in understanding how they're registered and what their requirements are, came through in that appeals process, which Tracy sits on the appeals board. A lot of them are working on getting off the registry with their case managers, which will not limit their housing in the future should they leave Zinnia, which is a good thing. I also think that obviously LHA has nothing to do with the city's decision on ordinances, but it might also increase our homelessness issue because if people can't find a place to live due to limited options, they're going to end up on the street.
And this is all about where you can sleep, really, when you're talking about, I mean, there's still, you cannot exclude people from trails, etc. I mean, there's a daytime issue and a nighttime issue. That's really the difference there. That was just a story aside. I was listening to a podcast about, and it was interviewing some homeless people that were registered sex offenders, and they just move their car around and make sure they do their check-ins, and it was really interesting getting down to the nitty-gritty, like what does that actually mean you do in a day to be able to comply with distance requirements. So it's interesting.
The other thing we find too is that the state allows them to register as transient or homeless, and 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. They're actually, we find it. I mean, we have how many property owners we work with in town, so a lot of them are unauthorized residents that we end up finding out about. So they're really not homeless or transient. So I don't have an opinion either way on that. It's just what it is.
So Sarah, how often do you guys check on these?
So we have patrol. We're required to go out, and I think it's a quarterly check on certain sex offenders. So patrol, actually we have some that come in on overtime on the weekends. We have a community service officer. She works in detectives, and that is her full-time job. It's basically registering these folks, keeping track of them, putting warrants out for them if they're failing to come and register. So.
Okay.
That's why some of our calls for service at Zinnia, like not so much this month, but we'll have like 7 or 8 just sex offender registration checks.
Which means people are looking at the website. I'm here today. Okay, well, that came up. And of course, one of them is in our neighborhood. But anyway, it's just interesting to hear what's going on.
It does have a tie to housing, so it's a good discussion.
Well, and with the fact that, unfortunately, at our facilities, if somebody really wants to get in, all they have to do is wait till somebody goes in and walk in behind them. So that, even though we preach about don't let anybody in, it happens. So, yeah, it's just, yeah. Anyway. Okay. All right. LHA reports, update on operations.
So we're still working on our vacancies, getting through wait lists. We're finding at some of the properties, a lot of people are over income when we're going through the qualification process. So trying to get through those as quickly as possible to get to those who will qualify. So we're working on those.
If they're over income, what do we do? We just charge them more rent?
No, they don't qualify if they're over income.
So they have to leave.
We basically do the process, determine their over income, and then deny them and move on to the next person on the list. So we're seeing a lot of that at Aspen Meadows neighborhood. Fall River and Spring Creek, just the same people moving out, passing away, high turnover. We're working on getting those done. We have some at the Lodge in Hearthstone. I do anticipate that those will fill quickly since we have a 2-year wait list for those properties. Village on Main, we don't have 5 vacants.
2.
We have 2 because we had 2 project-based voucher units that we have transferred existing residents in through the RA process, and now that's created 2 vacants. On the tax credit side, those are 30% units.
Those are
So
easy to fill, yeah. I have a wait list. I'm going to start purging through that to get those filled. And I'm going to also purge the Aspen Meadows one I had long bring those over yesterday. So. Yep.
We have our meth units, 7228 is under construction. They began work earlier in March, and we anticipate they'll be done in about 2 weeks. They've already got the drywall up. They're working on doing the seal in mud, and then they'll work on flooring and baseboards.
Was that the flooded?
It was the meth one that the pipe burst and flooded the unit below. The unit below is fixed. They completed that work. We got that covered by insurance. So that one's done. And then Fall River, we had cleaning, which I think we not gotten all on that.
Yeah, we're clear on that.
Yeah, so that one is
That
done.
one's good.
We're renting that. No bad move-outs or evictions. We did have one at, we've had a few at Zinnia for non-payment of rent. Either they've stipulated or they were able to come with all the money. So, working with our new partners. There's a new program through Boulder County using some of the one-week tax money called the VASP, Voucher Assistance Program, which will cover all voucher holders in Boulder County. So we're seeing a lot of people run to that program to get some assistance for money owed. As far as other updates, we are happy that the landscaping is happening in Fall River Spring Creek. Mostly Spring Creek, and getting all of the rocks moved because that's all completed. Just as a reminder, the rocks were purchased because we needed to spend the money. It was a good deal, but there was no plan for it. So unfortunately, they sat for a long time, but we're finally done with that. We're going to be using the same landscape company that we used last year. We worked through a lot of issues with them, and we're going to give them a chance this year, see how it goes. It's not always advantageous to switch companies year to year because you have to relearn all the properties and get into a flow, and this company is promising that we won't have the same issues we had last year, mostly with communication and getting stuff done. So there was some other stuff that affected them that wasn't necessarily their fault too. So working on that. Property updates for staffing. We are down 2 community managers and an assistant. We have promoted one of our assistants to community manager for Hearthstone Lodge, Nikki. So we have filled one position. We're still looking for another one, and now we will have 2 assistants that we have to fill. Because when you promote, you create another vacancy. So we're working through that process. We've been having interviews. We've got more scheduled.
We have an interview tomorrow at 3 and then 2 on Friday.
Working through that process. I think we're seeing some difficulty in hiring due to just the way things are, economics, but also I think people are a little leery about working for local, state, and federal government because of what's going on. They assume that maybe these positions won't be funded long term because they don't understand that those positions are funded through the property and they're going to exist regardless of what happens at the federal level. So we're trying to reach out to our contacts and get people in the housing industry who are aware, understand to apply. We're trying. We just want to make the right choices, not just warm bodies in a position.
And our salaries are competitive, right?
I think so. I think our salaries are competitive. Really, our benefits are where the interest is at, because working for private property management, we can attest to this, it's not the same. It's better here, but
We did re-benchmark all of the positions in 2024 to make sure that they were in line with our.
So just last year, okay. So you're going to be replacing somebody at Village, or just moving somebody around? Maybe?
we're still working
We're
through
still,
it.
actually trying to figure that out.
Depends on what skills we see in the people that we're interviewing.
Those people down there are fairly common.
I don't think Village is the problem.
No. That's because you're down there, right?
Sure. Sure.
They're pretty common down there.
Yeah.
And we have our next coffee and conversations at the senior properties in April. We're working on getting some partner organizations to come and speak.
We have the core paramedic coming in to do all that in April.
Core and then
Boulder County Agency on Aging.
agent. Yep, they're going to be there too.
Who's coming from the Boulder County Agency?
She's coordinating with Kaylee at Senior Center, but she has been coordinating with everybody else necessary. I'm not sure exactly who from
Let me see.
outside.
It's fixed. They haven't given us specifics on who's going to be there, but they're going to be there. The 20th.
We also have our elderly PBB waitlist open right now through the 14th of March, where people can join us in the 21st century and apply online, which is amazing. And so Kendra and her team and the property management team worked really hard. Tracy's team on getting everything loaded into Yardi and ready, troubleshooting. You guys have been in trainings for months leading up to this. So the voucher team's fielding that. They created a handy user guide to help people apply. Senior Center is working with us, and we've sent that information out to our partner organizations throughout the county to try to get more people on our list for the senior PPPs. Hopefully, if it
opened it up yesterday and had no questions.
That's exciting.
Yeah, Aquila had, one of the HCV staff members had created a procedure that they could go to and get help, and apparently it's a step-by-step screenshots. And so we didn't have one person call. In fact, what we did is we sent that form for the step-by-step process to all of the agencies that we normally contact. So they've got it to help their clients. So
It's a
far,
big
so
moment
good.
for LHA.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the
21st
next step
century.
would be, we'll be getting all of our recertifications online. So,
Which will cut down on traffic to the window and appointments necessary.
yeah, the landlord portal is up and has been up. But the recertification is gonna be a big thing, too. But we're ready to do that.
Do you know how many people have applied for the witness already, just since yesterday?
Well, when I talked to them yesterday around noon, there was 26.
Wow.
And how many vouchers have we got open?
This is for project-based vouchers.
Yeah.
We have, I think, one at Fall River. I think we've got them all filled. We had deleted, or we had done an update on the waiting list, and I think only 4 people had contacted us back, but they were still interested, and that's what prompted us to open it up again. We also ran out of applicants for 2 bedrooms for the elderly. We'll probably do the suites next. We'll do a purge. That's 2 years old, that waiting list. So we'll do a purge on that and probably open that. We get all of them on the list.
So this little gem down here, my question is, I know it says current period days vacant. Do any of these go back into 2024?
No.
So all these these are really right on, nothing's backward. Okay.
In terms of the dollar value, right? Because like the first one says 293 days vacant, so that in time is going back, but the dollar value is only current period. Is that right?
I think so. Kendra's out today, but it might be pulling, like she's saying, the days vacant. Like if a unit has been vacant for a long period of time, it might be pulling the days piece. But for the calculation, it should only be pulling the selected months, which is January to February. We do have a lot of vacants that we're still trying to fill.
So what's kind of interesting is that the very first thing that we ever saw, it was like over 500,000. And now it's 77, so I'm just trying to figure out.
Yep, because that was in 2024.
Where are we really at? Yeah.
So that's one of the questions I have is what information is most valuable from these reports, because the way the report is run is I can't designate, like I'd have to go unit by unit, and if a unit was vacant for a week, it's going to pull that. So to go and highlight the long-standing vacants, I'd have to go and do an ad hoc report for each one, line by line, unit by unit, and create a separate report. If that is something you're interested in, we can do that. But if we just run the report as is in Yardi, it's going to pull all vacants, even if it's just vacant between 2 people for a couple weeks, it's going to incorporate that. That information is useful too, because that speaks to how quickly we're doing our unit turns. How long is a unit down between residents? I think what we can probably do is run that full report. We know which units are long-standing vacants based on the data we have, and then we could just highlight those separately. Is that something you guys would like to see in the next meeting? Instead of this is very high level. We can get more granular line by line.
Well, if you're saying that the days are actually going back 2024. I guess it's the loss that I'm looking at, the budget one, that's a significant difference between 500,000. So I guess I'd like that particular thing to be a little bit more accurate.
Well, yeah, this is two months worth of
Right.
vacancy loss.
Yeah, and if we've got some that still are running from last year, then that's not included in this.
Right.
Yeah.
Because this is just going by what the dates are, the parameters we put in.
Mhm.
We could probably add last year's from the time it started to calculate that full cost over the 2 fiscal years.
Because that gives us an idea of what we're actually looking at as a loss. Yeah. Not that we can do anything about it, but at least it's telling us a little bit more accurately what we're looking at. Would anybody else want to say anything about that? Well,
What about
yeah.
those backup pages? Was that useful?
So that's the full one that talks about any vacancy at all, and it'll break it down unit by unit. But there could be 3 batches of vacancy for 1 unit based on how often returned. We can separate out the long-standing units that have been vacant for a long time. Those will be our meth units, things like that.
Is that something you're trying to, was that a one-time presentation, or you want to keep that list up? Because the short form or the long form, what do you?
That's what I'm asking them.
Is that
What? I mean, it's creating reports, exporting them to Excel, and then modifying them, color coding, doing some math. It's not a huge lift, but it is one more report to create. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. And I might be able to work with Kendra on creating a, what's the word I want to use? Not a unique report, but you know what I mean.
Custom?
Custom, thank you. Mom brain. Custom report. We might be able to create one in Unity that we set the parameters. I know I can able to do that in other software. So
She can create that.
we might be able to do that and have the 2 separate.
And it would just automatically update. Yeah.
Yes.
I think that would be helpful.
We'll work on that. We'll see if we can have that ready to go by the next.
Sarah.
All right, so I'm not going to go property by property because almost every property had 2 calls or less, except this week's only had 6 calls, 1 welfare check. And Zinnia had 24 calls and 7 welfare checks. So that's called for service update. Our assistant chief fire marshal came into Village of Maine last week and went to their community meeting and answered there's a lot of confusion there with the doors. And I she actually took a few residents and showed them that, because they were in fear they're going to be locked out, but she had to explain. The push bars are always if you're going in the wrong direction, you're not going to see a push bar, right? So you need to go the other direction toward the exit sign. So I think she was able to clear up some confusion there. And there were questions that went into the weeds as far as where are we going to go to the bathroom if we get evacuated. So she had some challenging questions to answer, but she did a good job. And she brought some swag. And by the way, did Lonnie bring any of that extra stuff down to the office?
I don't know, but Lonnie did say she wanted to speak with me.
That's probably it. Well, she had probably leftover fire stuff, and I'm just going to go
That's
from
probably,
you.
she says it's not urgent, but
Yeah.
that's probably what it is.
And then the meth addendum is still in progress. A lot of that's been put on the back burner because of LHA staffing priorities and then Temple needing to get back to us. So other than that, I don't have much.
So I guess the thing that always comes up is cameras.
I have some great bad news. So the last update I gave you were on. We were thought to believe that they were our cameras that were being shipped. And they were not our cameras being shipped, they were the rest of the city's cameras being shipped. So ours are being provisioned now. Molly and I need to contact Everon and just reevaluate, but this is good timing, I think, on Molly's part. I'm speaking for you, but the contracts and all the things that she has to do, I think timing wise, it gives her a little bit extra, a buffer. So, but I can tell you, we definitely need to get moving as soon as they get in, and it's, I think timing wise, Vol will be done, the people that install the cameras, they'll be done with the city cameras, and so they'll be ready to move right into what we need.
So we ordered them at the end of December, and it took, for the provisioning of 30 city cameras, it took until now.
And they ordered at the end of December as well.
Yes, and we are ordering hundreds of cameras. So I don't know if we should expect a longer time frame or not based on that. I don't know. But it will make all the paperwork is going to be easier, because now I'm well ahead of their schedule instead of having to kind of split it up and do pieces at a time. So they're still coming.
Do we have a priority list, or could we even get them in chunks? Or are you saying like it's what you're doing
If we
now is
got
like,
them in chunks, we
here's
would
our order?
install them in chunks. We'd
Okay.
probably do the suites first and then keep going down the line. I will
Okay.
say, in this time also, while we were waiting, the funding became available on the city side to complete also Briarwood and the commercial building in the front. And we do have cameras at AMSA that we installed in 2020 with the rehab project, but they are not compatible with the new system. So funding became available. We're going to go ahead and swap those cameras out so that they can all be on the same system. So now every property will be covered. So there's some good parts of the delay, which is now we can do it all in one fell swoop instead of piecemealing it all together. But Village is up and running. Village's cameras are up and
And
running.
if you want a demo, I can show you. But
Can you show it up there?
No. I can show you here before you leave.
Okay.
Due to access, Arlene, it's just it's all
Understood.
web-based, but I don't want to put that on here.
I always forget that we're on.
Yeah.
Okay, so Molly, are you doing, or Lauren, or whoever's doing the update from the executive director?
Don't have one today.
There's not one. All right.
Everything's perfect.
I'm gonna write that down, perfect.
You heard it from Lauren.
All right, other business. Any of you guys got questions? Comments? Listen. All right. Okay, motion to adjourn, we're gonna get out early.